Good morning. This is a huge topic. Let me begin with an experience of my own. Over 2 decades ago, I stood before an audience of over 750 people. I was honoured with the West Australian Telstra Businesswoman of the Year award. It was exciting and an amazing experience. In that moment, all my doubts came flooding in. My imposter syndrome reared its ugly head. If you're not familiar with the term, imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as people perceive you to be. There I am, receiving this amazing, extraordinary award, and I'm thinking, what if they find out that I don't know anything and that I'm a fraud? I put the award in a box and left it there for over 5 years. As time went by, I'd occasionally let it slip that I'd won the award, and I would get these awed looks. And then I'd get really uncomfortable. The imposter was back, and I would dismiss the acknowledgement that they gave me. Have you ever had one of those moments where you didn't feel worthy and being dismissive was the only way you could cope with the situation? Who can relate to that? The first storm we weather as leaders is to overcome the nagging, fraudulent feelings we have. What I was afraid of was being exposed as an imposter. Imagine how that drove my conversations. They were not pretty. Self-reflection allowed me to grow my legitimacy and be okay with the good, the bad, and the ugly inside of me. The more I felt okay with myself, the less time I gave the fraud. Is this resonating with some of you? Hey, you can kind of see yourself in this. Do a quick exercise for me. Just finish this sentence for yourself in your head. I'm afraid you'll find out. ... Big question. Freeing myself from the fraud prison I had created has come through acknowledging my flaws, not hiding them and not beating myself up about them. They're just there. Then finding a place inside of myself that knows I'm okay and using it as the platform to bounce from. This has given me the freedom I seek. Today we will explore the impact this has on us and share a few tools to close the gap between the leader that you are today and the one that you aspire to be. As Thomas said, for those of you who are new, we'll send you to breakout rooms and I'll pose a question and you'll just have an opportunity to discuss. Our first question for today, what do we require to lead despite our self-doubt? Off you go. Have a chance to talk to your group. Welcome back. So what did you come up with? Things like making sure that the data is all correct, having strong, passionate people around you, and asking the right questions, and lots more. So there are ways that we need to look at ourselves to find out what is required to lead despite our self-doubt. Number one for me, it takes a lot of courage to lead. We will examine the word courage and what it means. So what does this word actually mean? It's bandied around, hey? It comes from the French word le coeur, which means the heart. The word courage could be said to mean the rage of the heart. Marshall Thurber one of my teachers, described the pathway to courage best for me. Remember, it is the rage of the heart. And when your passion is at its highest and your unwillingness to accept mediocrity is present, you take the first step towards courage. It's akin to the young Chinese man in Tiananmen Square in June 89, waving a plastic bag in the face of oncoming tanks. He stood there resolute and shaking. That's what it's like to lead in the face of your self-doubt and all of your fraudulent feelings. Let's look at that pathway. What had him stand up and shake a plastic bag in the face of dozens of tanks? The first step to courage is commitment. In our Leadership in Action program, our participants learn a poem called the Commitment Poem. The first line is, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. A lack of commitment creates ineffectiveness for us as leaders. The conversations that we will and won't have, the decisions that we put off, and the challenges that we avoid. Only when we commit is the way made clear. Marshall used to say, upon the commitment, the way will be made clear. So, we're committed. Now what? Think back to the time just after you made a big decision. It might be the role that you're sitting in right now. You said, yeah, I can do that. What happens immediately after you make those huge calls and decisions in your life? Yep, you got it. All your doubt and fears come rushing in. The question is, how do you lessen or mitigate the doubt? Be clear, it doesn't go away. You simply become responsible for what you are saying and how you're acting. The power when we lead is to be present to the impact our reluctance and fear has on the people around us. We leave them floundering, waiting and wasting time and second-guessing us because we live in our doubt. Our fears and our doubt can take many forms. How about this? You overanalyze. You ask ridiculous questions and you ask for ridiculous amounts of data. You're not going to make the call until you know every T is crossed and every I is dotted. You delay decisions until there's only one option left, and it's not the best one. You keep seeking other people's approval instead of trusting your own judgment. You want consensus while everyone drowns. Notice your fear is driving this. Now, that's not to say that no fear at all is a good thing. It's not. I get most nervous when my people say to me, it's good, I have no doubt, I have no fear, I'm ready. And I go, now I'm worried. A little bit of fear is actually healthy. Having some doubt keeps you engaged and awake. And acting without thought and ignoring the doubts and fears will mean you will become reckless and make stupid errors. Doubt keeps you looking for the corrections that are required to be made along the way. Now, so you've dealt with commitment, you've dealt with doubt. What's next? Action. Ready, set, go. Then as soon as you have the moment of clarity, move into action and lots of it. Don't be an action junkie though. Simply keep taking the actions that move you toward the outcome you want. Where are you going and what do you want? If it's not working, pause, correct, and go again. Only through the actions we take do we know where to correct. No actions, you have no idea what's going on. It means no action means nothing will happen that's any different from what it is right now. you want something different to happen, you better take some actions. The last one. You do this all inside of a degree of ignorance. So courage means, yes, you're committed, you deal with your doubt and you take the action. You can't wait. After a big decision, when we have that, oh shit moment, what have I said I'll do? Working on our risk appetite will support us to overcome wanting to know everything, and knowing that we will make the call inside of a degree of ignorance. Let's check the health of your risk appetite. It will improve your capacity to act courageously. So we're going to do a little pop quiz. 1 is you're really risk averse. 5 is you don't delay decisions and you take healthy risks. Write the number down on the piece of paper in front of you, or think of it in your head. What's your number? If you score less than 4, you have a problem of drowning in doubt and overanalyzing and wanting too much data. Go and do something about it. No matter what call you make as a leader, we are often making them inside of ignorance. When we make the call, we take what we get. That's courage. We will thrive in the pushback when we make big calls. Let's go to our second question. How do you bankrupt the imposter syndrome? How do you bankrupt it? Off you go. Go have a chat. How do you bankrupt the imposter? I like that word, bankrupt. It's been a long and arduous journey for me, bankrupting my imposter syndrome. Today, I give it a lot less airtime. Following, I'm going to share some of the actions that have worked for me. And you would have heard things in your room as well. Could they work for you? Firstly, and number 1, break the silence. Shame keeps us in hiding. When we fess up about our fraudulent feelings, we discover we are not alone. Recently, while running a workshop, a young executive said to the rest of his team, "I'm really afraid that you'll find out that I don't know anything and then I'll be exposed." As he broke his silence, there was an invitation to everyone to examine themselves. In that moment, the team created an intimate space for real, heartfelt sharing. What he discovered was everyone saw him as incredibly courageous for having said it, and it gave them permission to break their silence as well. That's what we do as leaders. We demonstrate, and we are a demonstration. In this case, breaking the silence, the team comes together powerfully. Number 2, separate your feelings from the facts. I have a favourite line I use with our clients when they go down the imposter tunnel and allow their feelings to have all the say. Things like, I'm no good, I need to resign. I've even said that to Jay, my business partner. I think you need to find someone else to be the CEO of the business because I'm no good. And then he just looks at me with raised eyebrows and goes, yeah, okay, next. Right? So here's what I say to my clients, and it's what I say to myself too. My response is this: isn't it a good thing your feelings are not a good gauge for reality? If we acted on our feelings, we'd all be in mighty big trouble, because our feelings are not a good gauge for reality. The moment you acknowledge that your feelings are not a good gauge, you break the bubble of the prison that you created for yourself. Next one, recognize when the imposter has arrived. When the fraud was running my show, I took feedback from people who had no idea about my business and did not have my best interests at heart. Welcome the imposter. Notice when the imposter arrives. Thank them for sharing. You go, thank you very much. That's enough now. Now you might feel a bit crazy because you're talking to yourself, right? That's okay. No one knows. It's all in your head, right? You go, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Shut the door and go back. Revert to point number 1. Break your silence. Next, embrace your failures and your mistakes. The only thing I'll guarantee you as a leader is you will make mistakes and you will look ordinary. That's it. That's the guarantee of leadership. How's that? You want to take on the job? So, develop a healthy response to your failures and ask this question of yourself. What did I just learn and what will I do differently next time? I like this quote by Henry Ford. Failure is only an opportunity to begin again, more intelligently. I like that. I'm smarter after I failed and made a mistake. We could take that on and go, yeah, I know something. So that didn't work. Let's not do it again. Next, create a new script. What's your There you go. There's a mistake to make me feel stupid. What's your internal dialogue? Can it sound something like this? Wait till they find out that I have no idea what I'm doing. You could rather tell yourself, when I'm starting something new, I always get a little bit wobbly. I may not know all the answers. I'm smart enough to ask questions. These are a few actions you can take to end the imposter or reluctant leader in you. Most importantly, notice and stay aware of how you're faring in the face of uncertainty. Keep asking yourself, which of these 5 actions could I take right now? If you want new results, they come through new actions. You cannot get a new result by doing what you've always done. This honest reflection will support you in growing your personal belief and increase your legitimacy in yourself. We have a piece of homework that we give executives in our Leadership in Action program. It is to write a weekly reflection. This is not a weekly dot point. This is a weekly reflection. Here is my observation of those people who take this seriously. They do the most changing. So through our self-reflections, through our reflections, we auto-correct. If you are not reflecting, it's one of the things that we measure in the integrity and values profile, self-awareness, self-reflection, to weather the storm of leadership and thrive in the pushback. We do it by having the courage to continue to hold the line when others don't agree, and we reflect about what's going on. As leaders, our reluctance to take this on makes our lives much harder. Most importantly, we become responsible and notice when we're not correcting with velocity. Like, hurry up, guys. Let's talk about holding your ground in the face of no agreement and not allowing the reluctant leader to run the show. Let's look at what are the behaviours of a reluctant leader. Off you go to your breakout room, have a chat. Welcome back. So what do these leaders do, me included, when we're reluctant? What are we doing when we're not making the calls? You've heard my story. My reluctance to own my own achievements meant that I kept the people around me small, and they could not grow beyond my limitations. and in turn the limitations I created for them. When I was first confronted with this by one of my mentors, I was required to look at how I kept the fraud alive. As long as it was there, I didn't need to be responsible. Following are some of the behaviours I've used and watched other leaders use. What are the behaviours that fuel your imposter and the reluctant leader? This is a good one because I was great at this one. We create diversions. Let's create a diversion. We'll do anything other than confront the issue at hand. This keeps people off balance. They don't know what's going on. Let me paint the picture. A company loses a major client. The leader, rather than taking swift action necessary to recoup the lost revenue, he goes into avoidance, creating a diversion to draw everyone's attention away from the pressing issue. We've lost revenue. His diversion is he sends out a memo and says it's urgent and calls a meeting to discuss the leadership team's bonus structure. Hello, bonuses when we just lost a major client? Without a healthy culture, no one is going to challenge this. Well, let's all just put our heads in the sand and be ostriches. Other examples. They create the illusion that all is well when it is not. Here's another example. One client we had 45% of their revenue with one customer. I don't need to tell any of you what that means. I warned them that not diversifying their portfolio was dangerous. How many leaders here know that's dangerous? 45% of your revenue with one client. I said, what would happen if you lost the client? They argued, we've had it for 25 years. That was even a bigger red flag for me. And guess what happened? It went out to tender and they lost. The rest is history. Then the next one that we do is we procrastinate. Procrastination is driven by our fear of getting it wrong. We keep gathering more and more and more information to get it right, and all it does is frustrate the people around us. We're unwilling to act or make a decision that is not perfect. Then we have the last one. I mean, there's many more. Well, these are the ones that I think are at the top of the list. The likability factor. Having your people like you or like the actions you've taken is more important than doing what's right for the people and the business. We won't give feedback if in any way it will jeopardize us being liked. Many leaders erroneously believe that their people will like them better if they only give good news. By the way, bad news doesn't get any better by taking a long time to deliver it. It just gets worse usually. So, this is some of the stuff that if we're going to weather the storm, we better address. So those are the behaviours, the things that we do to weather the storm. And if we're going to weather the storm, what are the behaviours of great leaders? Yeah, let's go and discuss that. Off you go. What are the behaviours of great leaders? When you as a leader have these behaviours, you can weather the storm and you can thrive in the pushback that you get when you make big calls. The first one is they know and they are okay with not knowing. Everything, and if you don't know everything, it's actually it's okay. Otherwise, we wander around saying, I know. When we lead people inside of our program, I often say to people, here's 3 words that for you to learn as a leader. I don't know. Learn them. You cannot grow people if you're the one who's the repository of everything. Bad news. Learn to sit there and wait and listen to your people and see if they will find the path. Encourage that. 2, they're able to self-reflect. They're able to unpack what's going on for themselves around them and the impact that they have. They keep doing it. What happened there? What could I have done differently? Asking yourself those questions makes all the difference. The next thing is they are lifelong learners. I was visiting with a client last week who completed our Leadership in Action program in December 2019. I have a saying, leaders are readers. Anyway, this young man had not read a lot prior to the program. He said when the program finished, he thought, I'm going to set myself a goal. I'm going to read a book a week. That's a big task. He went on to say that out of the 52 books that he'd read last year, there were a handful that were great. And he got something from all of them, even if it was just one thing. Interestingly, he said, I don't remember everything anymore about where I learnt it and what book it was in. I just know that I can pull on that repository of information to support me as a leader, especially when I'm floundering. Number 4, they focus on success of their team. They focus on the success of the team. It's about the team. And are passionate about their work. Their passion becomes contagious and it is felt within the team. Surround yourself with people who you trust and that they have capabilities that are greater than your own. You don't need to be the best at everything. They don't grow if that's what's required for you to feel okay with yourself. 5th, and this is seriously important, we've done a whole webinar on this and we will be repeating it. They are able to hold people accountable. They do not run away from the hard truths and are able to thrive in the face of pushback that they get. I get really excited when I notice people pushing back slightly and going, no, that's not okay with me. Number 6, they have the courage to be vulnerable. They own their mistakes, they don't make excuses for themselves, and they have the integrity to clean up their messes. Believe me, if you do not have the vulnerability to hold the space, to own your mistakes and to clean up your messes, your people will not follow. They will just simply judge. I love this quote by Benjamin Franklin. How few there are who have courage enough to own their faults or resolution enough to mend them. In conclusion this morning, in a world where the armchair critic is alive and well, when we raise our heads above the parapet and say that we'll lead, and we make big calls, the naysayers will still be there to shoot us down. In that moment, it takes courage to lead and weather the storm. Become mindful of who you're listening to. Is critical for success. The only way you build muscle that quietens the self-doubter and the fraud is to make decisions and take what you get. As we take these actions, we own our legitimacy, and the fraud becomes a distant noise in the background. Thank you for being here. I'll hand back to Tama.